in the business is showing the world why.
In an historic context, that could end up being one of the best defenses of all time.
Well, I don't think a question. I think it is. Baltimore is a one-shot, 1 year. Their greatness remains to be seen. I thought the Steelers had the best defense of all time.
If I had to rank them, I would rank the Bears first, the Steelers second, and the Ravens third.
So who had the best defense of all time? Was it the Monsters of the Midway? The Fearsome Foursome? The Purple People Eaters? Dallas's Doomsday? The Colts of the 50s? How about the Packers of the 60s? The no-name Dolphins? Well, we won't reach a verdict here today, but I will hold court with Sports Illustrated's Peter King, Hall of Famer Mel Blount from the Steelers of the 70s, Hall of Famer Mike Singletary from the 85 Bears, and reigning Super Bowl MVP Ray Lewis from the Ravens. And we'll discuss the greatest defenses of all time. Buckle your chin straps. In this courtroom, the defense never rests.
By National Car Rental. Go your own way with National's Emerald Club. Southwest Airlines celebrates 30 years of freedom. 30 years, one mission, low fares.
Ray, I want to start with you. We got a shot of you coming out of the tunnel, and it looks to me like you take a piece of some dirt and you rub it on your jersey. What's the significance of that?
The movie Gladiator. I watch it before every game, every night. And Russell Crowe does that before he goes to war. And he grabs the sand and he rubs it in his hand and he goes to war from there.
If you consider all three of you are gladiators, that when you look at that movie, that all the gladiators are different. Some have a trident and a net, another guy's got a mace, another guy's got a sword and a shield. So assume that all defenses are like that, are different. How do you see the Steelers' defense of the 70s different from Mike's defense, the Bears of the 80s, and Ray's defense of the current day?
Well, I think the biggest similarity is that every one of these three defenses has guys that could play in any era and be star players. But the difference is, I think that the biggest difference by far is that the Steelers did it for 6, 7, 8 year period where they had 8 guys from 1973 on who were the same. Okay, every year you went to training camp and you're the same. Ray Lewis goes to training camp, Kim Herring's gone. Next year, who's going to be gone? You just don't know in an era of free agency of how long it's going to last. But now everybody's pumping it up as maybe the greatest single-season defense of all time. So every offensive coordinator is going to be burning the midnight oil every week before they play him.
You know, the thing with us, honest, Steve, is that we have a personnel right now that says we can play our base defense and beat you.
He's coming after him. Keep tackling.
And so I look at Marvin and give Marvin the nod. And, you know, just on Gladiator, you know, he unleashes hell when you do that. and that's the fun part about it. You know, Marvin will give the nod like that, and that means he's going to come. When we get up, that's when you unleash the dog.
When that whistle blows, we unleash hell today. When that whistle blows, we unleash hell.
One thing that I've noticed in our film, and this is sort of a strange question, but we had Lawrence Taylor mic'd for a game.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
And then we have a bite from the Bears, and all the guys are together barking. And then we've got you saying that, you know, now it's time for the big dogs to go out and hunt. What is the fascination with dogs? I mean, why not tigers or wolves or sharks? I mean, dogs, to me, you know, when I think of a dog, I think of a little beagle or something that's a friendly little dog. But why the fascination with dogs?
Honestly, none of us around here was raised around lions and things like that. But I think we was raised around dogs. When a dog fights, they fight. When they go to war, they go to war. And when I was growing up, we raised dogs.
What kind of dogs did you have?
Pit bulls.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
So you didn't have like a little Shih Tzu or one of those little, you know,
He
those
would
little
survive.
furry little dogs.
He would survive.
You know?
I kind of like what Ray had to say, because when you think of a dog, that's an animal that supposedly is man's best friend, number one, but the other thing is that when they went to war, man, they can be destructive. I mean,
You ever have a dog, Mike?
Growing up in the neighborhood that I grew up on, the thing that I remember is on the end, there was the junkyard, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing, to this day that would terrorize you more than a junkyard dog. I don't care what you have, you'll have to kill it to enter.
Because the bears used to get together and go, whoop, 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 right?
You know,
Maybe we should have started this whole interview like this. Get everybody together and started barking. Maybe they got everybody in the right mood.
To you, it's a PC.
Chicago Bears, and let them know why you're wearing the crown. You're the pride and joy of Illinois. Chicago Bears, bear down.
Mike, let's say if a psychiatrist had examined you at game time, what conclusions would he come to about your personality if he was to talk to you right before the kickoff?
You know, my mom always taught me growing up, you know, son, you got to know, you know, when you're in Rome, you got to act like you're in Rome. And wherever you are, you got to be fully there. So when I step on the field, or practice field, football field, something has to happen. A transformation has to happen, and I have to get everything I have and bring it right there and be all in the present so that I can perform to the level that I want to perform.
What about you, Ray? If we had a psychiatrist come in and examine you right before you played?
I'll be relaxed in the locker room, very relaxed. But when you walk on that field, something happens. And if a psychiatrist was going in my head, he would probably, you know, envision taking a stick from a pit bull and running and knowing that he's going to chase you wherever you go, no matter where it's going to be.
How about you, Mel? What about your state of mind?
well, depending on the psychiatrist, he probably would check himself into a hospital, or he would go back to school. You know, I think I'd blow his mind.
Wrong reading.
Yeah, he'd probably say I'm gonna change professions or something. But I tell you, people don't realize what it takes to play football. I mean, to play it at the level we played it and play it as well as we played it, you have to be at another level mentally.
When it's time to step on that field, it's time to take it to another level. And when I saw something wasn't going right, if it was on a Monday, if we wasn't practicing right, if it was on a Tuesday when nobody was there on off day, when I saw that, I said, no, there was no way.
We want to be the best at what we're trying to get done. We got to set this team out. All right? We can't have breakdowns in the fourth quarter. We got to communicate and think mentally.
1999, we played New England Patriots in New England. And we went up there, and we had a chance to go to the playoffs that year. But we lost that game. And I remember coming in the locker room, and I remember saying, you know, nobody better not put your, you know, freaking heads down, because now we have something to look for, and that's getting to Tampa next year. And there was a sense of, wow, let's get the season started. Let's get the season started. Let's get the season started. And I think that was a turning moment, that we knew it was going to be good after 8-8 season.
Despite being considered one of the greatest units in NFL history, the Ravens did not finish the regular season as the NFL's #1 ranked defense last year, in part because Baltimore gave up 524 yards to the Jets in the regular season finale. The Tennessee Titans yielded the fewest yards in the league and finished 2000 as the NFL's #1 ranked defense.
Winner of 4.
Last season, the Ravens yielded just 2.68 yards per carry. That's the lowest yards per carry given up in 49 years. And entering the 2001 season, the Ravens have gone 37 straight games without allowing a 100-yard rusher.
I know when you watch television, one thing you hear announcers say all the time, oh, that defense is on the field so long they're going to be tired out. Well, what about the offense? Doesn't the offense get tired out? Why do they always say, well, if you're on the field for so long, the defense is going to be tired out?
When you're on defense, usually the offense dictates. So all you can do is follow and try to make a play. Right, just go and react. And every time you react, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't figure that out. I didn't figure this out. But when you change that and you dictate what you want them to do, to say, okay, I know you're not going to run because you can't run. Your running back is not the man who's going to beat us. Trust me when I say that. You're going to have to try to find somebody else who's going to beat us, because early in that game we're going to make a point to prove to your running back that he won't be that guy. So throw it. Then that's when that offense says, wow. That's when that changes.
It's about who is really winning the battle, because when you get the adrenaline going and things are going your way, you have a tendency not to get tired. Right. But when you're getting hammered, and they're controlling you and driving the ball on you, then it's, it takes a lot out of you.
Steve, by the end of last year, there was no question in my mind that every time the Ravens were on defense, they were on offense. I mean, and that was really the key to their success, because you remember in the Super Bowl last year where the Giants, they got the ball maybe at the 30-yard line at the beginning, then the next possession they're at the 23, then they're at the 16, then they're at the 9, then they're at the 1, and you're saying, oh my God, they're just gonna move them right out of the stadium. And to me, the play that, where I said this game is over is the play where, Tiki Barber is taking an end sweep left, and I mean, here's the middle linebacker of the Baltimore Ravens, a guy who's not supposed to be one of the fastest guys on the field, taking Tiki Barber, the fast guy on the Giants, the guy who's supposed to make the game different for the Giants, and he catches him from 8 yards behind. And to me, when a defense becomes the offensive force in a game, that's when the game is over. And I think that's all three teams here, all three guys here were on defense that did that.
You think that's true of the Bears?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I look back at the Bears, the thing that we wanted to do and the 46 allowed us to do was really audible. And when we went out there and the offense was trying to set us up for plays or whatever that they really wanted to run, and the quarterback would audible and put us at a disadvantage of the defense, then I would audible and put us back where we were before. It just allowed us to play sort of a chess game. And that's when defense becomes fun, when you set the tone and you're not back on your heels and you're not playing into their hands. So the thing for us is we had to go in the game knowing, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we had to control the running game, because that's really where the game is won. If we can do that, then they have to do other things in order to try.
But let's go back to the game that you lost against the Dolphins. Now, they didn't have much of a running game then, and it was all Marino. What was your thought going into that game?
Well, I honestly remember asking myself that night, on Monday Night Football, when we were playing the Miami Dolphins, this has got to be a nightmare. This cannot be happening. I mean, we were going to Dan Marino. We were knocking him down. We were hitting him. He was throwing the ball. It was deflecting off a cornerback's head and was going to Mark Duper. Next thing you know, he was going. I'm like, what is this? I'm out in the middle of the field screaming. You got to be kidding me. What's happening here? This is not supposed to be happening. But it was that kind of game, that kind of deal.
And yet, after that loss, the next day, you guys go back to Chicago and record the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Yes, the next day. And it's the best thing we ever did.
I didn't come here looking for trouble. I just came to do the Super Bowl Shuffle.
Best thing we ever did.
Why is that?
Well, as I said before, we were a very young team, and we were a little immature, and we were very cocky.
I'm Samurai Mike. I stop 'em cold. Part of the defense, big and bold.
But when we got beat the way we got beat, we were riding on the plane on the way back to Chicago thinking, I can't believe what just happened. I mean, we just lost. We just lost a game. I didn't think that was possible. So we began to think about what some things we need to dig a little bit deeper here. And we need to figure out what the kinks are before we get into the next level. Because once you start heading toward the playoffs, it's got to be at another level.
Just like Mike says, it's like a chess game. Sometimes we might stay and bait you into what you think we might do and we're not doing it. And then sometimes we come at you full speed ahead.
And the kid who baited the quarterback in the touchdown that the cornerback intercepted and ran in
Dwayne
the Super Bowl. I mean, that was a beautiful, it was just a beautiful thing to see. And so when you have those kind of players and you have that kind of mentality and that kind of love and trust in one another, it's hard to beat.
Last year, the Ravens set a record for fewest points allowed in a 16-game season with 165, an average of 10.3 per game. But in 1969, the Minnesota Vikings, in a 14-game season, gave up just 9.5 points per game.
Hey, man, this young quarterback, man, somebody knock him out for me, will you?
The 85 Bears are remembered for their cruelty to quarterbacks. But it was the 84 Bears that set an NFL record for sacks in a season with 72. How many did the 2000 Ravens register? Just 35 in the regular season. That ranked 22nd in the league.
Mike, did the Bears defense have a motto or a slogan or something that there was, you know, in the locker, you know, deeds, not words, or was there something that you guys used as a slogan or a catchphrase through the mid-'80s?
The slogan that I remember Buddy Ryan saying, which was the defense coordinator at the time, and it was basically kill a flea with a sledgehammer. You know, that sort of mentality. And that was basically it. Set the tone from the very beginning, the very start of the game, to the very end of the game.
Well, you know, that sort of leads into a famous quote that George Halas had, who's the founder of the National Football League, and he said that the game is built on the premise that a good player becomes less good if he's hit so hard and so often he doesn't want to be hit again.
That's right. To me, that's what football is about. And quite frankly, I have a problem sometimes now watching the game when I see, you know, some of the fouls that they call roughing the passer. And I'm saying, man, well, I think Lambert put it best. Why don't you just put skirts on them, and, you know, that way we won't have to worry about hitting them. But I think it's all about economics, too, is that you got so much money invested in these guys until these owners want to keep them on the field. You get a quarterback that you're paying millions of dollars, they don't want to see him put on his back too often, unfortunately. But that's what football is about. It's about getting to the quarterback, you know, taking the will to play the game out of him.
I was listening the other day, Tiger Woods was on the air, and he was talking about, you know, a couple of tournaments he played, and he could remember every shot that where he was, you know, in tournaments that were played months ago, years ago. Can you remember that as far, Ray, start with you, as far as tackles, specific hits that you've made, or is when a game's over, is it pretty much a blur?
Nah, you remember. They're I think for me, Mel, and Mike, they're tone setters when you make those type of hits. And those are hits you never forget. This past season, Eddie George called a swing pass. And when I saw Eddie, I let go everything. And when I thrust it into him, my coordinator said, you just changed the game. Because he never ran the same after that. Those are the type of hits that you like, that you always remember.
What about you, Mike?
Rather than a hit, I would go to a game that we played. I think it was '84. We were playing the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings were whipping us. I think it was fourth quarter, maybe 3 minutes to go. And they were up maybe 10 points. And they had just gotten an interception, and they were down on the 1-yard line. If they score here, we're done. We don't go to the playoffs. Well, we go in, and we're in the huddle, and we're talking, and we're screaming, and we're crying. And, you know, we look at each other and said, this is it. This is, we don't have anywhere else to go. This is it. We're gonna earn it. We're gonna go to the Super Bowl, and we're gonna go to the playoffs. Or we're going to die. And I walked over to Minnesota's huddle, and I touched the guard on the shoulder, and I said, you guys will not score. Whatever you want to bet. And he looked around, the referee said, what are you doing over there? I said, you will not score. He said, you crazy? I said, you're not scoring. So we get back over there, you know, we're screaming, they come out and they line up, and they try to run the ball right between the tackles. they did not score. And matter of fact, they were going backwards. And we took the ball, offense took the ball, marched the ball down, scored. Our defense came out, stopped them again. We won the game. To me, that was a turning point for us. We grew up. That was huge for us as a team, and we began to go forward after that.
How about you, Mel?
We went to Houston, but Joe Green actually dominated. I mean, he literally dominated that Houston, that game. He just took over the game. And I've never seen a player do something like that. And we won that. We came out there, we won that game. And I'll never forget, you know, Chuck, because he talked to the team afterwards, and it was just an incredible thing to experience. So I think that really epitomized what that Steeler defense was all about, that particular game.
In 1976, Pittsburgh had a 9-game winning streak. During the streak, the Steelers registered 5 shutouts and gave up a total of 28 points. 8 of the Steelers' 11 defensive starters were chosen to the Pro Bowl that year.
Surprise! It's plaid shirt season.
3 of these defenses. If I was going to ask you to come up with one word to describe the Steelers of the 70s, Bears of the 80s, the Ravens defenses, what word would you pick to describe each one of these?
Frightening. Just simply because I just don't think anybody that's ever played football at the end of last year could have played a successful offensive game against the Ravens. Consistent. I just think that the Bears, for a period of time, you knew exactly what you were going to get every Sunday. And I hate to be redundant, but I'll use a slightly different word with the Steelers. Lasting. Okay? Determining what it took to be a great team for a long time and totally devoting themselves, never deviating from the path it was going to take. I just think that they realized that over a long period of time, they knew exactly what they had to do to be great for a long period.
Next week, another guy who played on some pretty great defenses joins me to talk about his endless passion for the game, his new job, his motorcycles, his love of rats, and his fashionable wardrobe. Matt Millen, next week on Presents.
That is a good look.
Prestone, the #1 name in antifreeze, provides tough defense your engine needs to combat cold.